Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel. And I know we took a little bit of a break. We had Pesach over there, needed some time to recover from Pesach. It takes a lot out of you. So thank you so much for your patience and welcome back. So we're going to start obviously by saying Tehillim, Hallelu et Adonai kol goyim, shabechu kol haomim, ki gavar alenu chasdo ve'emet Adonai le'olam hallelujah. We would also like to dedicate this class for our soldiers on the front lines, for the safe return of the hostages, for the protection of Israel, wherever we may be. Miracles are happening. We might not just see it because the world is currently focusing on the chaos. But again, the chaos, as we know, we've said this here, is all one big distraction. Look at me, look at me. In the meantime, other things are taking place. So, this one, we're still on the topic of Amalek. This is called The Inevitable Downfall, chapter 44c, and this is true. On Be'ezrat Hashem, we are going to see this downfall swiftly and very, very soon in our time. So 3 weeks ago, I believe, we finished off with, and Israel forgot to cut off and destroy Amalek and all his seed. But the Holy One, blessed be He, did not forget. When did Israel have the opportunity to do so? Way back when. Let's pick up where we left off. And when Saul was ruling, Samuel told him from 1 Samuel 15:2-3. So said the Lord of hosts, I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him on the way when he came up out of Egypt. Now go, and you shall smite Amalek, and you shall utterly destroy all that is his, and you shall not have pity on him, and you shall slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and donkey, every last living thing that is them or belongs to them. You see, we know who Amalek are. They might exclusively have it in for Israel, but their intention is to ultimately destroy the world. And so that's for everyone to be concerned about, which means it is within everyone's best interest to destroy Amalek. Now, if anyone out there who calls themselves God-fearing individuals who have a problem with this, then by all means, feel free to join those who support the poor, innocent Palestinians. Do not forget what happened. Do not forget what they say, how they educate their children from age 0, what it is that they do. And don't even say, oh, poor kids, because it's not only in Israel. Am I being insensitive? Let's read just one more time real quick. The word of God. Now go, and you shall smite Amalek, and you shall utterly destroy all that is his, and you shall not have pity on him. And you shall slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. Everything gone, memory gone. Everything. We don't want anything from you except you need to be gone. We're going to learn a valuable lesson today, the difference between mercy and compassion, and how in the face of obedience to the word of God, no one cares how you feel. From Midrash Tanchuma, Metzora, Part 1. Rabbi Elazar said, anyone who becomes merciful upon the cruel one will end up being cruel to the merciful. Kol shenase rachman al achzari, lasof nase achzar al rachmanim. It is written in 1 Samuel 15:9, but Saul had pity upon Agag. He was the king of Amalek, right? Pity upon Agag and upon the best of his sheep and cattle. And it is also written in 1 Samuel 22:19 about Nov, the city of the priests, and he smote Saul, and he smote Nov, the city of priests, with the edge of the sword. So, mercy. We see mercy has nothing to do with it. Rather, you made a calculated decision to play to the public, pretending to be merciful to further your agenda, when in reality you slaughtered a city full of your own innocents. Spare me your two-faced rhetoric. I speak this right now. Pay attention to everything that's happening in the world today. You will very quickly see who Amalek is. Where do we see this kind of behavior? Almost all the world governments. Anyone who decides to open their mouths and speak to matters that they either know nothing about, which look at the interviews being conducted, or have an agenda. Most people do. Both are correct, and at the same time, no less, they're both correct. And so if you claim to be a pacifist and your heart goes out to those poor innocents who are just getting slaughtered, then I can tell you that you will very soon be standing with the animals in the form of man, chanting to kill real innocents, which is currently happening. Wonderful. Great. So now we know who y'all are. So, what happened in our story? And Saul took all the men of war and went out towards Amalek. The Radal asks a great question here, and he's also kind enough to answer. We can see in 1 Samuel chapter 11, verse 8, when Israel went to war against the Ammonites. And he counted them in Bezek, and the children of Israel were 300,000, and the men of Judah 30,000. But here, when they went to war with Amalek in chapter 15:4, it says, and Saul called the people together, and he counted them in Telaim, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 the men of Judah. So one might think that this was the bigger battle, right? So why are there 110,000 less troops going to war with Amalek? Great question. Remember how we fight Amalek? You recall? You always have to go back to the point of origin. Exodus 17:9. So Moses said to Joshua, pick for us men. Don't just gather everybody. Pick for us men and go out and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow we'll stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. Amalek are a cancerous tumor embedded deep within our spiritual consciousness, as well as within the nations and Esav and Ishmael, the Arabs and the Western world. In order to defeat them, we need to get surgical, right? This is a war that has spanned thousands of years, which can only be handled with pinpoint accuracy and perfect intent. Great answer. Thank you, Radal. And Saul took all the men of war and went out towards Amalek. And when Saul came to the middle of the way, he stood and contemplated in his heart, as said in 1 Samuel 15:5, and Saul came as far as the city of Amalek, and he fought in the valley. Rather, fought in the valley? What valley? It's strange that it says valley, emek, when it says river, nachal, okay? Here's this in Hebrew. Vayavo Shaul ad ir Amalek, ir is city, Amalek of Amalek, Vayarev banachal. What's a nachal? Nachal is a river. Why does it say here valley? I don't know. A deeper look into the Midrash, which gives us context and backstory, the river was actually halfway between the camp of Israel and Amalek and the fight. So it could be at the valley, but specifically we need to focus on the river here. And the fighting that took place at the halfway point was a smaller skirmish, as they did not yet reach the full forces of Amalek. Now, as we know, Amalek dwelled in the deserts in the south, right? We could see this in the book of Numbers. And so they still had a ways to go. But when he was at this point, the halfway mark, that's when he balked. And so here's another interesting take to this. We know that Amalek is not just a physical fight, but a spiritual one as well, right? And now, again, there's three aspects to Amalek. There's, like we said, there's the internal Amalek, the one that will keep you from doing what you need to do, okay? There's the internal as far as within Israel, there are actual Jews, born Jews, that are from the seed of Amalek, and they are currently governing our country, as we can see, and causing all the chaos over here. It's textbook. And of course, there's Amalek within the nations. Not only the Nazis, but also the Arabs as well. When can we see this in recent history? When Hitler sent out with a Grand Mufti, right? The Muslim guy, the Muslim leader of the free Muslim world. It was him who gave Hitler the idea for the final solutions. And and he helped him build these gas chambers and these concentration camps to round up all the Jews. So, all Nazis, all Amalek, doesn't matter. They were working together hand in hand, and they still are till this very day. Okay, and now the world is on the side of the poor innocents. You see, it's crazy. Crazy town. Okay, so, like we said, there's another interesting thing to this. There are spiritual implications of Amalek as well. Some of the spiritual involves a whole lot of heart, meaning intent, and a whole lot of wisdom, which is discipline. That's how you know, and you'll know exactly what I mean. Anytime a person says of themselves that they are spiritual, you pretty much know they do little to nothing, right? Yeah, I'm more of a spiritual okay, so you go by what you feel. All right. So this is not to say that spiritual people do nothing, but you know exactly the type of person I'm talking about here. Once upon a time, again, I wasn't always a religious person, but I can definitely say I was always a spiritual person, right? And now when I'm having the conversation with people who, when I did tshuva, and people who used to be religious, I'm having conversation with them and they're not religious, they'll turn to me and they'll say, I'm more of a spiritual person. You do things that you follow the thing. I'm like, wow. So is that where I was? Because I would say that because I was a spiritual person, it made me want to do things, right? It's like a flame without a candle. It cannot exist. I just want to do this all day, but you have no base, no foundation. So it is the spirituality that should actually make you want to manifest, to do these things, right? Abraham believed. And that's why he did everything, because he was a spiritual person. Okay, so like we said, this is not to say that spiritual people do nothing, but you know exactly the type of person that we're talking about. So they go by how they feel. These, generally speaking, these spiritual individuals, what makes sense to them, so long as following God, God's direct commands, it doesn't infringe upon their own life choices. I don't think that God would be so mad at me if I this, that, and the other. But does God not say A, B, and C, and you're doing that? I'm more spiritual. And that's usually where the conversation ends. It's funny. Anyway, that being said, the first battle that King Saul had with Amalek was a mental one before he actually got into the, okay, here's God's commands. Right there at the halfway point. Listen to the language again. Where? Well, before Israel encountered Amalek for the first time back in Exodus 17:7, he named the place Massa, testing, and Merivah, quarreling, as in the word riv, right? Because of the quarrel of the children of Israel, because of their testing of the Lord, saying, is the Lord in our midst or not? So the word riv, either a quarrel or a dispute, but not a physical one. This was not a physical thing that took place, right? With Israel, Israel did not physically fight against God. They questioned, they were quarreling inside. The children of Israel quarreled with God, obviously, but it wasn't physical, and it did involve purposeful defiance, meaning mentally on the side of the instigators, who were Datan and Aviram, after which Israel followed suit emotionally speaking. Oh yeah, well, we're dying of thirst, so is God with us or not? You forgot a couple days ago what happened, right? Okay. Meaning the two instigators were speaking it while the people were contemplating their words in their hearts. That's it. God just took them out of Egypt and split the sea. Their minds had nothing to do with this, right? Because logically, wait a minute. We just witnessed this. We crossed through the sea. What do you mean, is God with us or not? So this is, boom, it's off. Now it's all emotions. This is straight up propaganda and incitement. Take notes because it's all done currently. Now let's look at the language in 1 Samuel 15:5. And Saul came as far as the city of Amalek, and he fought in the river. Again, here's the English translation. Listen to the Hebrew. Vayavo Shaul ad ir Amalek, vayarev banachal. The word is not fought as translated, but rather in Hebrew it is vayarev, and he quarreled. And he quarreled with Amalek, right? But what Amalek? With God concerning Amalek, meaning the fight had already begun before the action actually took place, where he was already showing signs of weakness. It all starts from in here. Now we're going to see just exactly how something like this manifests. And please take notes, because this is a prime example of leaning on your own understanding and or making up excuses that are more convenient for you. Okay? You're going to have to face God with the choices that you make. Please don't do this to yourself, right? Meaning, doing everything except following the explicit instructions of God. No one told you to think for yourself. We're talking about when it comes to the commands here. We're not talking about Torah study. Then, of course, think, ask questions, inquire. It's a command to do. That's why it's called Mishnah. Mishnet to leshanot. In other words, to take this. How about this? And looking at it from every single angle. That's what we're talking about. But you don't question. You don't question where it comes from. Is it good or God said to do it, so you do it. You want to try and understand its benefits. You want to try and understand its spiritual properties and aspects. It is our job to do that, of course. Do that. But I don't think, well, if God said so, don't question. All right? So, no one told you to think for yourself as far as this goes. You already know, as the king of Israel, we're talking about Saul right now, whose ancestors crossed over the Jordan out of the wilderness and out of Egypt before that. You already know, Saul. You know the power and glory of God. He needs not prove that to you as you are sitting in the land of Israel after a long exile. Again, after the long exile, today we had the longest exile in the history of our people. 2,000 years we haven't been here, and now we come back, and still you have Jews who are, I don't know, God probably doesn't exist or whatever. I'm Israeli, not a Jew. It's insane to me. These people are not part of Israel. You already have the 5 books of Moses, King Saul, and may you see everything that is written in those books, and everything has come into fruition and continues to do so. Today we have the Nevi'im and the Ketuvim, and we have 2,000 years of incredible Ruach HaKodesh from our sages. And everything is coming into fruition. At this point, I don't even know if there's anything left to believe, because just read the book and see what comes next. You have champions, Saul. You have prophets. You have priests. You have Pinchas, Elijah, who is actually there as a first-hand witness to all these events. You have no reason to doubt God or even question God at that time, when you're alive at that time. And yet, Saul said to himself, if the men sinned, why have the women sinned? Uh-oh. Oh, no. Oh, no. Now, it is very unfortunate. I also know people that are even close to me, and they won't do any mitzvah if it doesn't make sense to them. So just throw the whole thing away, right? It doesn't make sense, so I'm just not going to do it. The men did war with Israel, but the women didn't go to war. And women did not come against Israel back in Rephidim in the wilderness. So what did the women do, right? And if the women sinned, he thought to himself, why have the children sinned? The women did not come to greet Israel with bread and water, you can say, as they were on the way out of Egypt, weak and weary from the journey. But what about the innocent children? And if the children sinned, why have the beasts sinned? We can understand that the children who are still the seed of this evil nation will only grow up and continue to war with Israel. But the animals, the livestock, they have no da'at, they have no understanding. Why did they sin? Why do I have to kill them? Aside from God specifically said so. I mean, although it was hundreds of years later in Isaiah's time, where God said in Isaiah 55:8, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, said the Lord. But that you can argue that this was meant for our generation today. I'm talking today, you, me, here, today. And for the generations over the past 2,000 years, when we had no land, no temple, no king, no prophet, no tabernacle, none of its vessels, including the menorah or the ark, we have nobody today to lead us anywhere and nothing to keep us focused. This ain't leadership, sorry. But in the days of King Saul, right, the first king of Israel, he had Samuel. He had the tabernacle. He had all its vessels. How could he be thinking? Or are you thinking for yourself over here, Saul, right after you got the marching orders? Yatzta bat kol, a voice from heaven came and said to him, Saul, don't be more righteous than your creator. Do you hear that, people? Do what God commands you to do, according to where you are. Do not change what God told you to do, because you are not God. And do not for a moment assume that you have any idea what the real reason for anything is other than what God tells you to do, when he tells you, and if he tells you. And we're not talking about, I had a vision, I had a dream, and so that's not Judaism. That's pagan religions. Everybody, emotions and this and that spoke to me. No problem. But the way we do it here, it's all written down, so there's no confusion. This is how one nation could be in one mind. It's already written. And we don't change that. There aren't 50,000 variations of the single text. And if you don't get an answer, and you most likely will not, if you pray to God, what should I do? What, no answer? Okay, you most likely will not. You continue to move in the direction that God told you to move in. It's in the book. Doing what he said you should do, living how he said you should live, and thanking him for the opportunity to do it. In other words, don't be more righteous than your Creator. Or in today's lingo, please, spare me your bleeding heart. Rabbi says, when Saul came up to the camp of Amalek, he saw the sons of Jethro mixed within their camp. Now, we've discussed this in the past, that one of the names of Jethro, which is actually a title of the priest of Midian, like the Pope, right? Or like Pharaoh. All the kings of Egypt were Pharaoh. All the kings of Babylon were Artaxerxes. They all had they had names, but that was the general title, right? Also, Jethro was the one, Moses' father-in-law, was a reincarnation of Cain, as in Cain and Abel. Cain had a very big tikkun to do, considering he was the first man born and also the first man to commit murder. Moses is the third incarnation, meaning of where he originally came from. The first being Abel, who then reincarnated into Seth, and then in Moses. In fact, the three-letter name of Moses spells out the first letters of these three names. Mem, Shin, He. Moshe, Shin, Mem for Moshe, Shin for Seth, and He for Hevel, Abel. So if you think about it, twice the first man born, who was literally the son of Adam, of man, was first Abel, because he was, as we discussed, Cain was more influenced by what was going on with the serpent over there. And then again, after Adam did tshuva, he had a son in his likeness, in his image, and that was Seth, who is completely righteous. So, Moses was second only, the soul of Moses was second only to the soul of Mashiach, who predated Adam while still being part of Adam. It was all thrown into Adam, right? It is all the neshama, and then we say the ruach Elohim, the spirit of God, that is the neshama of Mashiach. And the neshama of Mashiach is all connected within all the people of Israel. And Cain reincarnated into Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses, in order to do a tikkun, as he later submitted himself to God because of Moses/Abel. You get it? By the way, a piece of Cain's soul also reincarnated into Korach, as the earth swallowed him up at the very same place where it first swallowed the blood of Abel. And even later on, the great sage Rabbi Akiva, whose parents were converts, was also a reincarnation of Cain, as he made a massive tikkun for his soul. You see this? So whenever we see in the Torah the term the Kenite, in Hebrew Hakini, we are speaking of Jethro as referred to by his spiritual root. Judges 1:16, and the children of Keni, Ubnei Keni, Choten Moshe, the father-in-law of Moses, went up from the city of date palms with the children of Judah into the wilderness of Judah, which is south of Arad, and he went and dwelt with the people. Judges 4:11. Now Heber the Kenite had separated from the Kenites. Vecheber HaKeni nifrad mikain. From Cain it says, Mibnei Chovav Choten Moshe, of the children of Chovav, the father-in-law of Moses. Book of Numbers 24, 20-22. Now see the relation to Amalek and how they were already dwelling close to them. When he saw Amalek, he took up his parable and said, Amalek was the first of the nations, and his fate shall be everlasting destruction. This is who? This is Bilaam's prophecy. When he saw the Kenite, he took up his parable, and he said, how firm is your dwelling place, and your nest is set in a cliff. For if Cain is laid waste, how far will Assyria take you captive? Okay, we understand what's going on. Reshit goim Amalek. Reshit is the same thing. Israel is called Reshit. Bereshit Israel. In the beginning, there was Israel. And so the opposite of that is Amalek. Amalek is the tip of the spear of all the nations coming at Israel. And the 70 nations who are led by a mixture of Edom and Ishmael together. And the tip of that spear is Amalek. And they're coming against Israel, right? And 1 Chronicles 2:55, and the families of scholars, those who dwelt in in Ya'abetz, Tirataim, Shimataim, Shuchataim, Sochataim, Hema Hakenim, Habaim Mechamat Avi Beit Rechev. They are the Kenites who were descended from Chamat, the father of the house of Rechab. Yes. Now that we know that, we can continue reading this. So we see there are the Kenites. We understand who they are all throughout the Tanakh. So Rabbi says when Saul came up to the camp of Amalek, he saw the sons of Jethro mixed within their camp. He saw them when he was down by the river, before the real battle started, as he said to them in 1 Samuel 15:5-6. And Saul came as far as the city of Amalek, and he fought in the valley. So we already established Vayarev Banachal. There was a quarrel over here. In other words, there was not a battle, an external battle. There was an internal battle with himself. He started to become weak and started to question and doubt God. And Saul said to the Kenite, Vayomer Shaul el Hakeni, turn away and go down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. And you did kindness with all the children of Israel when they went up out of Egypt. And the Kenites turned away from amidst Amalek. Now, our sages ask the obvious question here. What did I just read? Did Jethro do kindness with all the children of Israel? We're not talking about the Midianites. We're talking about the part from the Midianites that Jethro actually converted, right? So, no, he did kindness only with Moses, our sages say. Though he locked him in a cell for 10 years for fear of Pharaoh, he eventually gave him his daughter Tzipporah as a wife and took him in. We know the story. We've been through it. But rather from here you can learn that anyone who does kindness with a great man from Israel, it is as if he does kindness with all of Israel. Same thing with Batya, Bat Paro. Batya, the daughter of Yah, the daughter of Pharaoh, because she saved Moses, it was like she saved all of Israel. Same thing with Jethro. And it is of the kindness that he did with Moses that his descendants, the Kenites, escaped certain death, as said in verse 6. Say our sages, and Saul said to the Kenite, right? And the Kenites turned away from amidst Amalek. Though they were not part of the 12 tribes of Israel, they did convert as their high priest Jethro did back in Exodus, and are considered to be part of the greater Israel. Klal Yisrael, they're part of Israel. And as we know, according to the laws of the Torah, going back all the way to the days of Abraham and Isaac, one is absolutely forbidden to marry outside the faith. This is why Saul was contemplating regarding the women, because if the women were Amalekites married to the Kenites, God said that all the seed of Amalek should be wiped out. Now, there absolutely had to be a separation between Israel and the nations throughout time. We are called to be a nation of Pharisees, Perushim. Perush, Pharisee in Hebrew is parush, from the word lifrosh, to detach yourself, to pull away, meaning to separate yourselves from the rest of the nations, because we're not supposed to live like the rest of the nations. We can see how they live, and according to the book, we don't see it today, but according to the book, we see how we are supposed to live. So, all right, so that's what happened over there. So this is why he was contemplating regarding the women. Okay, so that they shouldn't be wiped out. So this is one of the reasons the second temple also was destroyed, the intermarriages, and the reason its completion was delayed in the first place, from Ezra chapter 9. For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, and the holy seed has become mingled with the peoples of the land. That's Erev Rav. You don't even know who's a real Jew anymore. And the land of the chiefs and the deputies was first in its treachery. And now what shall we say, O God, after this? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you have commanded by your servants the prophets, saying, the land that you are coming to inherit is an unclean land because of the uncleanliness of the peoples of the land, by their abominations by which they filled it from end to end with their uncleanliness. And now you shall not give your daughters to their sons, neither shall you take their daughters for your sons, and you shall not seek their peace nor their prosperity to eternity, in order that you become strong and eat the goodness of the land, and you shall cause your children to inherit it to eternity. Then in chapter 10, and Ezra the priest arose and said to them, you have dealt treacherously, and you have taken in foreign wives to add to Israel's guilt. And now confess to the Lord, here's your tshuva, confess to the Lord, your God, the God of your forefathers, and do his will, and separate from the peoples of the land and from the foreign wives. Then the entire congregation replied and said in a loud voice, yes, we must do as you say. Not an easy task, right? You should all read this by yourselves, but the conclusion was that Ezra gave them time to make the necessary arrangements in order to reestablish the covenant with God and complete the temple. So either the women and children would convert or they would get sent away. There are no exceptions here. You can't, well, I love her so much. Seriously? You see what I'm saying? And that's the problem today. Well, it's how I feel. Your feelings are what gets in your way right now. So it was, and so it will be. But here, regarding Amalek, judgment had already been passed, and there was no time for anything other than separation. Dude, everybody here is going to die, so get out. You may be thinking that this is cruel, that this is inhumane, or wherever else your feelings might be hurt and limited understanding when it comes to matters such as this. This goes back to the days of Abraham. But then please do not call yourself God-fearing individuals, because this was nobody's idea. This was God's command, and it is our job not to question him, but to obey. People today have no clue how important it is for Israel to be separated and clean from all the nations. Our eventual salvation and redemption entirely depends upon it. And again, Israel will be separate from the nations. God is making sure that that happens. It's in the prophecies. It's in all our sages. Israel will ultimately stand alone. Alone. Completely alone. Meaning even the Erev Rav from within Israel are going to leave. That's what the squeezing of Israel is doing. That's why you're going to be refined like silver and gold. Everything's got to get dunked into the fire. It's going to be very painful, but those that are not real will be gone. That whatever comes out left, that is Israel. And it says all Israel will be saved, meaning only who is left will be saved, and they are really Israel. See? Okay. So, like we said, our salvation and redemption depends on it, because otherwise then, love is love, right? See how that doesn't fly. Or as the voice from heaven said to Saul, dude, spare me your bleeding heart. And by the way, where have we seen another great example of someone who did kindness with Moses, received recompense? Like we said, this was Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh. Understand how important it is what she did, okay? Here is your tshuva process. Not only your tshuva process, here is how people who want to convert, this is your true test to conversion. Since she left her father's house and defied his commands, converted and joined herself to Israel as at their absolute lowest point. We're still not at our lowest point. Wait till, again, 1930s Germany is happening again in America. You're going to see Jews rounded up. You're going to see these things happen. No, you can't come to school. This is what the brown shirts did in Germany. To the enlightened Jews, no way that would happen. That would never happen. We're all friends. We all go to school together. Everything's good. I'm a German first, then I'm a Jew. Wait. So you see what's happening. At Israel's absolute lowest point, that's when she said she was going to join Israel, when her father was literally murdering Jewish children. As a result, she merited to save Moses. She merited to save Moses, the Redeemer of Israel. And not only that, but she is also one of the few people who entered into the Garden of Eden alive. She never died. And for the cherry on top, Moses was given 10 names in the heavens and in the earth. But because Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh, who God called his own daughter, right? Batya, Bat, his daughter, Yah, God, gave the child the name Moses, and so it was. What does this show us? If you do kindness with any Jew, let alone risk your life for a Jew, you have a very special place with God. He's not going to let you go. And that's why a lot of my Noahide friends are asking, so what do I do in this time? Remember, God's most prized possession, okay? And like we even studied in our group, at the end of days, when all the nations are going to have to come and make Aliyah to Jerusalem and say to themselves, what can we give to God? Everything is his, the bulls, the calves, the gold, the silver, what are we going to give to God? What does God desire most? His children. If you help Israel now, when it is not a good time to be on the side of Israel, it is written, it is seen. When you put yourself in danger, don't obviously put yourself in danger. Think clearly, yes, but let's say they're called, I'm recording this on Monday. It's Yom HaShoah today, so Holocaust Memorial Day, right? You've had hundreds, maybe thousands of Gentiles who risked their lives to save Jews. These people are called Tzadikei Umot Ha'olam, the righteous of the nations. What, you think God doesn't have a special place for them? Of course, because it's all about his kids. Anyway, okay, so back to Saul now. Now we know what happened, and let's see the result, right? What happened with Saul? He spared the king, King Agag, who ended up on that night, just for the few hours he was in captivity, he impregnated a woman the night before he was killed. And from him, the seed of Amalek was continued into this world to the point where a series of hidden miracles had to take place to correct these happenings. Now, we've already studied in detail the story of Saul and how he slipped up. Let's take a quick read. 1 Samuel 15. We'll start with verse 13. And Samuel came to Saul, and Saul said to him, "May you be blessed of the Lord, I have fulfilled the word of the Lord." And Samuel said, "What then is this bleating of the sheep in my ears?" Not supposed to be any sheep. And the lowing of the oxen, which I hear. And Saul said, "They brought them from the Amalekites, for the people had pity on the best of the sheep and the oxen in order to offer to the Lord your God." So he's clearly, we're not on the same side. "And the rest we have utterly destroyed, just like your God has said." And Samuel said to Saul, "Desist, and I shall tell you what the Lord spoke to me last night." And he said to him, "Speak." And Samuel said, "Even if you are small in your own eyes, are you not the head of the tribes of Israel? And the Lord anointed you as king over Israel? And the Lord sent you on a mission and said, 'Go, and you shall utterly destroy the sinners, the Amalekites, and you shall wage war against them until they destroy them.' Now, why did you not hearken to the voice of the Lord, but you flew upon the spoil, and you did what was evil in the eyes of the Lord?" And Saul said to Samuel, "Yes, I did hearken to the voice of the Lord." "Yeah, I did. 99 don't count. I did go on a mission on which the Lord sent me, and I brought Agag, the king of Amalek." Did I say take prisoners? "And I brought Agag, the king of Amalek, alive, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. And the people took from the spoil sheep, oxen, the best of the band, to sacrifice to your God in Gilgal." And Samuel said, "Has the Lord as much desire in burnt offerings and peace offerings as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than a peace offering. To hearken is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is as the sin of divination, and stubbornness is as idolatry and teraphim. Since you rejected the word of the Lord, I don't care that you did 99%. You do everything. It all comes from the same place. I don't care if that didn't seem right to you. You do it all. Since you rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you from being king. Ow. And Saul said to Samuel, I have sinned, for I transgressed the Lord's command and your words, for I feared the people, and I hearkened to their voice. It's like he's making it worse at that point. And now forgive me my sin, and return with me, and I shall prostrate myself to the Lord. Before I read that, I always get to that place. And Samuel said to Saul, I shall not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord. Rejected. You did the very opposite. It's not that you didn't do, it's like you didn't do what you're supposed to do and you did what you're not supposed to. Complete the opposite of what you were commanded. I shall not return with you, for you have rejected the word of the Lord, and the Lord has rejected you from being a king over Israel. Now, why did God deal in this manner with Saul? Because he had a mission that affected all of Israel until the end of time. It wasn't just that one thing. This particular mission was huge. It was also personal to God. A mission that could have ended Amalek once and for all. A mission that would have made the whole world a safer place. Furthermore, he was king, and so he is held to the highest standard, even more so than the high priest. From the book of Esther, Haman, Amalek, was a direct descendant of Agag, right? The king of Amalek. Well, obviously because he was the only one left, but it mentions this point of origin for our understanding. So in Esther, after these events, King Achashverosh promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, Ha-Agagi, and advanced him from Agag. And who was there to oppose him? There was a Judean man, meaning came from the area of Judea, in Shushan the capital, whose name was Mordechai, the son of Yair, the son of Shimi, the son of Kish, the Benjaminite, as in he was from the tribe of Benjamin, right? Who else is the son of Kish from the tribe of Benjamin? 1 Samuel 9, 1 and 2. Now there was a man of Benjamin, and his name was Kish, the son of Aviel, the son of Zeror, the son of Bekorath, the son of Aphiah, the son of a Benjamite man, a mighty man of power. And he had a son, whose name was Saul. Haman was a reincarnation of Agag, and Mordechai was a reincarnation of Saul. This time there was a tikkun. God just doesn't leave these things open-ended. There's always an opportunity. Whether it's in our lifetimes, we discuss this, you keep going around in circles. Why does it seem like I'm going through the same thing? Why do I meet the same kind of people? Why do I go through the same kinds of tragedy? Because you have to make a tikkun over there. That's why you're there. The moment you do that tikkun, that will never happen to you again. You're done. We're moving on to the other things that you need to rectify. So this time there was a tikkun, but the final wiping out will only be coming at the end of days. We're currently at the end of days. We're getting to the end of the end. And since we are speaking of the end of days, pay close attention to what Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer is mentioning here, as we can expect to see similarities in our time, today, tomorrow, anytime. Rabbi Yossi says, when Sennacherib came to the land of Israel, remember this, all the nations saw how his camp completely surrounded the land of Israel. How could his camp have been, I'm asking now, so large that it could be seen by all the surrounding nations, right? Even today, Israel sits in one place, all around us, friendly neighbors, right? Isaiah 37:36. And an angel of the Lord went forth and slew 185,000 of the camp of Assyria. And they arose in the morning, and behold, they were all dead corpses. Okay, this is when Sennacherib and the Assyrians came around and laid siege to Jerusalem. We know how that ended. Not a single arrowhead was found in Jerusalem till this day, because God said, nothing is coming in. Watch what happens. So obviously the 185,000 was not all of their ranks, but rather only their high officers, of which Rashi says, get this, the smallest among the 185,000 commanded 1,000 men. So for conservative numbers, 185,000 times 1,000. Okay? Do you understand? Okay. What is it? It's 185 million, right? It's 185 million. It's 185 million conservatively, because we said the smallest of them. And so we know there were those that commanded tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands. Now, I've already read Midrashim that say it was in the high hundreds of millions, almost a billion. There was like 900 million or something, as they covered all the mountains, the valley, all the earth. It was all the nations together. It wasn't just the people of Assyria. They conquered nations, and you had all these nations fighting under their banner, right? They instilled terror upon all who saw their numbers. That's why the fact that they didn't enter Jerusalem, nor did a single arrow enter its walls, exactly how God said it would be, is such a big deal. We still cannot comprehend, but if someone like this would have happened to any other nation throughout history, they would have been a memory within a day. A memory at best, I say, right? And so it was with the Assyrians. Who could stand up to them at that time? Remember what we say, Gog and Magog? All the nations are coming together upon Israel, and they will be surrounding Jerusalem. It's going to happen. And what happened with them? Not a single arrowhead entered. Our text continues. When Sennacherib came to the land of Israel, and all the nations saw how his camp completely surrounded the land of Israel, and they were greatly afraid, and each man fled from his place, as said in Isaiah 10:13. But let's also read 12 for context. And it shall be, when the Lord completes all his work on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, I will visit retribution upon the increase of the arrogance of the king of Assyria's heart, and upon boasting of the haughtiness of his eyes. For he said, with the strength of my hand I have accomplished it. Ooh, and with my wisdom, for I am clever. And I remove the boundaries of people. Borderless society, anybody? And their positions have I plundered, and I lowered many inhabitants. Remember, we discussed that the boundaries of the nations had been given to them according to the boundaries of Israel. The same thing when it came to the 70 nephesh of Israel according to the 70 nations. What Sennacherib did, not only to Israel, but to the world at the end of time, will cause a great confusion. He's taking people, uprooting and mixing everybody and everything. We want a multicultural society. He would conquer a territory, killing most of its people, and those who survived he would kidnap and displace, exchanging one nation in place of another to cause confusion in the world. Everything is out of order, and so it is today. We can't say, the nation of Amalek sits here, the nation of Edom sits here, the nation of Ishmael sits here. We can't say that because they're everywhere, even amongst our own people, exchanging one nation in place of another, right? So it causes confusion. Once upon a time, we could clearly see there's the borders of Midian, there's the Moabites, there's Seir, there's Amalek. Not today. Today, everybody is everywhere, and that's why the borders we have today do not reflect the biblical spiritual nations. Why did he do this? For the same reason that Amalek attacked Israel, because they all wanted to mess with God, as a rebellion against God. So, if helping a Jew is the greatest thing you could do for God, what is the greatest act of defiance against God? Kill a Jew or two, or all of them. God's way is perfect order. Everything is in perfect order. Nothing goes out of its lane. This is by design. While the rest of the world today and these evil people back then purposefully caused and continue to cause chaos. Why do you think we don't know where the 10 lost tribes are today? If Israel are not all physically together, the redemption cannot be complete, and our power is weakened. Our power comes from unity, yes? He knew that. So what did these nations do? And when we say nations, we are speaking specifically of the Amalekites. Each man, no, so what do these nations do? It's asking the question, Pirkei Rabbi Eliezer, and speaking of Amalek, right, because that's our title. Each man fled from his place, and they entered the desert and mixed themselves within the sons of Ishmael. What's this? We clearly see it now, don't we? Right? Today, we clearly already saw what happened. The specific characteristics of Amalek within the sons of Ishmael, within the Arabs. It was around 30 years ago or so, I recall Rav Ovadia Yosef of blessed memory, stated very clearly that the Muslims that we are dealing with today, especially in Israel, are Amalek. He said this. And I also remember that it was the Orthodox world who lost their minds when he made this statement, specifically who? The Ashkenazi Jews. You understand why? How could the Nazis, who were white Germans, be Amalek and also these Arabs? But we already explained where they came from. The whole concept of the final solution came from the Arabs. This is what they're fusing together already back then, but they're working together. They are one and the same. Well, aside from that, the world had been witnessing what the world had been witnessing and turning a blind eye to up until now, since that fateful day. We all saw who they are, and so we know who we're dealing with. It is very clear who we are dealing with. And when I say we, I obviously don't mean anyone outside the world of Torah. They have no idea. They think if we just get rid of Gaza, all the problems will go away. I've heard people say, well, if we get rid of Islam, all the problems will go away. If we get rid of the clown on the throne here, no, none of these things. Everything is mixed together. Everything needs to go. Everything. This world has to look should be unrecognized. It will be unrecognizable in the days of Mashiach. The way things are going today, none of it will remain. Every last thing, and we've already discussed that. These are enemies that it is a positive command to destroy and a negative command never to forget. Positive, negative, right? Zechor v'lo tishkach. Remember, don't forget. Every man, woman, and child, every cow, every ox, every donkey, so that none shall remain. So says God. So we see that there has been an obvious fusing of the nations and the peoples, and today Amalek are everywhere. Just like all the nations have been mixed up, we all started off as three people, Shem, Ham, and Yefet. The term anti-Semite means anti-Shemi. Shem, the Jews, Israel, the Muslims, and even Amalek are all Semites. They all come from the line of Shem, right? Alluding to the Jews. And yet Ishmael, Edom, and even Amalek, like we said, they're all Semites. Once upon a time, only Ham and his descendants were black, while Japheth was light-skinned and Shem was olive-skinned. We know that today skin color means nothing when it comes down to which nation you actually come from. I mean, look at Israel. We got all the shades over here. Everything from everyone, okay? No one is more Jewish, than his fellow, regardless of the color of their skin, because it's a faith, and we come from all over the world, and everybody who is a real Jew, it doesn't matter what they look like. They're a Jew. So, each man fled from his place, and they entered the desert and mixed themselves within the sons of Ishmael. And they were all 10 nations, as said in Psalms 83, 7-9. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagarites, okay? Edom, Ishmaelites, Moab, Hagarites. Gebel, Ammon, Amalek, Philistia, and the inhabitants of Tyre. Also Assyria joined them. They were the arm of the children of Lot forever. So we've already discussed who the Hagarites were, yes? They were the descendants of Ishmael from the wife that his mother, Hagar, had got from him from her family, meaning an Egyptian. And remember, the Egyptians back then, even in the days of Abraham, they were all black, right? So you know that Hagar was black, and you know that Ishmael was black. And then afterwards, we're talking about like dark-skinned, yes? Again, this ain't a racial thing. Please understand. This is how people knew back in the day the world was divided into 3 camps according to skin color. But since all this confusion, everybody is everything right now, right? Because like we said, I had platinum blonde hair when I was a kid. I got blue eyes. Technically, I should be from Yefet. And yet, I trace back my lineage thousands of years. It's irrelevant right now. So they're all Ishmaelites, but specifically from the house in Egypt, and then the sons of Ishmael from the rest of the nations over there. So while the Ishmaelites are his descendants from his wife of the daughters of the land, but regardless, none of them have a future, as we will see in just a moment. So all these 10 nations who fled from the massive Assyrian army ended up fusing with them, with the Assyrian army, and all the other nations that the Assyrians conquered, including the 10 lost tribes. You want to know how we could possibly have born Jews today who are actually from the seed of Amalek? Here's how. And what do we learn? And what do we learn? There's very specific characteristics of the Erev Rav Amalek that are mixed within our ranks. As mentioned in the Zohar, plenty of times we taught it on Acharit Kalashit, but let's bring the words of the Vilna Gaon, the Gra, from his book, Even Shlema, chapter 11, section 8. These are the 5 kinds of Erev Rav within Israel, that are embedded within Israel. And again, you could tell who's who according to their characteristics. The first group, those who cause division and spread evil speech, slander, right? 2, those who follow their lust. 3, the hypocrites who say one thing and do another. 4, those who chase after honor to make a name for themselves. 5, those who chase after money. None of these should be characteristics of anyone from Israel, okay? And those who cause division are the worst of all, he says, and these are called Amalek, the ones who cause division. Protests, protests, protests. We got protests now. Every Shabbat and Motzei Shabbat protests, just like it was leading up to this. They are not understanding. They are not understanding that what happened over there down south on Simchat Torah was actually a mercy. They don't understand because it's going to happen again. Because they're doing the same thing that caused that to happen. They don't get it. Just don't. And the son of David does not come until they will be uprooted from the world. Amalek, right? And every machloket or argument that sows division that is not for the sake of heaven is from the Erev Rav, who jump upon it to command and take for themselves honor. Sounds like your average everyday politician. Now, doesn't it? That's what politics is. That's what a democratic society looks like. As Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said in the Zohar, that these 5 kinds of Erev Rav will not only be mixed within Israel, but the Erev Rav will absolutely be in all the positions of power ruling over Israel in the end of days. And so it is. So it is. As our text continues and says, and all of these, the 10 nations on the Erev Rav, will fall at the hands of the son of David, as said in Psalms 83:14. My God, make them like thistles, like stubble before the wind. And so, how do these Amalek characteristics translate into Israel, into the Israel of today? Protests? Check. Sowing division for any reason among any group of people? Check. Cutting funding from actual Torah scholars while giving 100 times, 1,000 times that amount to Amalek in the south. Who do you think is funding Gaza, for goodness sakes? That's us. You know, the ones who raped, pillaged, murdered our people. Check. People who mock God and those who follow him. Check. People who act without mercy towards their fellow Jew. A check. These people have no future. God makes that promise. You can see already who's who. It's becoming so clear. It's already clear. It's been clear for years, but now you guys can see it too. The line has already clearly been drawn. People are just, that's it. So what have we learned? There is Amalek spread throughout the nations of the world, and thanks to recent events, Baruch Hashem, thanks to recent events, they are actually showing their colors, and guess what? They are getting marked. What's the latest chant right now? We are all Hamas, yeah? Okay, no problem. We already know how that's going to end for them. As Rabbi Elazar said, anyone who shows mercy to the cruel will end up being cruel to the merciful. True story. There is Amalek in the form of the Erev Rav within our midst, see the government, regardless of the left or right, see the protests, and TV stations, and news media, and on and on and on. And there is Amalek inside of us. Your walk with God is happenstance, your relaxed state, and anything else that will cause you to get swallowed up by these beasts in the form of man. And they know from their root that their time is almost up. And like any cornered animal, that's when they are most dangerous, because they hold back nothing. They know, even if they don't know, they know their time is up. They are the tip of the spear, like we said, that is Edom, that is Ishmael, that is leading the nations, the Western world, and all the religious or lack thereof, and culture realities that come with it. We see what's happening now on college campuses, right? We see it's happening everywhere in all the governments everywhere. We see it, Baruch Hashem, that this is happening. Baruch Hashem. And still, there are Jewish communities that just, no, it'll blow over. Why? I don't bother. Why? It's already been done before, right? Whoever's supposed to be here will be here. Whoever's not, won't. And that's it. And Jews out there are still trying to fight for what exactly? They are trying to appease Amalek when they made their intentions very clear. If the Jews around the world don't wake up soon and flee to Israel so long as they can, we know what comes next. As we still have some survivors left to tell the tale. In Exodus 2:24 it says, God heard their cry, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and with Jacob. Does God ever forget that he needs to remember? God is always the one who is constant, never changing. But it's the people who were asleep in Egypt of the past and in Egypt of the present. You're born into this life so you don't know anything else. You think that this is all there is. They weren't even aware that they were slaves. To them, this is just life. Look at people today. Look at the rat race. There is no American dream. The American dream was never alive. It might have been alive for like a year or so after World War II, right? Before Korea. Good times. Not really. And the straits are going to keep on getting narrower until whoever is left is going to cry out. And when the police and the army and the National Guard and the neighbors and the friends and the government, and when no one comes to help them, and when they all turn on them, that's when the Jews will remember finally who they are. That's when they will cry out to God, and that's when God is going to respond. We don't know who we are today. And so God needs to send the world upon us that we remember. Let us hope and pray that this happens sooner rather than later. All this could go on without incident, but 2,000 years of exile will make people lose their memories a little bit. And that, friends, that's our class today. So if you have any questions regarding this matter or anything else, please email me. But please, just serious inquiries only, okay? So thank you for sticking around with me this long. Have a wonderful rest of the week, and have a Shabbat Shalom.